Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for being here tonight with us. We are very excited to share with you the progress that we have made since the November passage of this very exciting bond issue for Revere. And tonight, we are going to catch you up with all of the hard work that has been done. At the end, we'll have time for questions and answers because we want to make sure that your questions are addressed. And we are going to be very timely in our presentation because we know how valuable your time is, especially the parents in the group. So we will try to limit to about 45 minutes of presentation, and then we will start questions and answers. And then at that point, if you feel like you have your questions answered and you are ready to go, feel free to do so. But we're trying to be respectful of everybody, and I couldn't thank you enough for being with us tonight. This is being videotaped and will be posted on the website tomorrow for anybody that may be unable to attend. So please spread the good word where that is concerned. You know, Revere right now is working on many initiatives in this strategic plan. We're so much more than buildings, but buildings is why we're here tonight. But I don't want to lose the focus of students and why we're doing this and what's really important. Today we did a press release for a 2-year curriculum mapping process that is completed. The teachers are doing meaningful work in so many areas, and this is one of them. So I want to celebrate their hard work, and I couldn't be prouder of the work we're doing as a team. I would like to introduce a few people that will be speaking tonight. You are in luck. I will not be the only one speaking, so congratulations. You can celebrate now. But let me introduce a few people in the audience now for you. So first up, we have Mr. Burdine. He is our new treasurer, started this summer, took over for Mr. Forrest, and he will be speaking when we talk about the financials tonight and also be a part of the Q&A session. Brett Hendricks is in the front with BSHM Architects. He will be speaking tonight. Amy Ekman is in the front from Perkins & Will. We have 2 firms working with us on this project. BSHM is out of Youngstown and Perkins & Will is out of Chicago. So we are very fortunate to have both firms with us. Also from Perkins & Will is Stephen Turks, also in the front. If you were a part of a building committee in the spring, Mr. Turks helped with that visioning process. So how did we get here is a big question that you may be wondering. So we started the planning before the bond passed in the fall of 2016. And we were working with Lesko and Associates, a different architecture firm at that time. And we had committees created, 2 committees. One committee that was focusing on finances, and the other one on the building the master plan. A cross-section of about 50 folks from the community, largely community, and in this stage, not too many staff at that time. We wanted the community voice. We rallied together and we came up with a plan that we thought would be acceptable to our voters. And that was a lengthy process, and it was a give and take. And we tried to create a plan that we thought that after a plan that for 20 years failed would be acceptable to the people that we proudly serve. And as you know, those results were favorable, very favorable in fact. Over 60% of the community supported this initiative. And I remember how great I felt that evening when I watched the final results come through, because I knew that this is something that the community wanted for a very long time. And to be a part of that was very special, and I continue to count my blessings. After the bond passed, we, as the board, engaged in interview processes for firms, architect firms, as well as construction management firms. And that was a lengthy process, to say the least. And the architect teams that I introduced this morning, earlier, were the recipients of that responsibility. And then we have members, I think Matt Collier is here from ICON. Matt, where are you hiding? Oh, hi, Matt. You're not hiding at all. Hi, Matt Montgomery. Nice to meet you. I apologize. So Matt is with us. He is from ICON, which is the construction management firm that is helping us build the buildings. So we have a great deal of people that are partnering together to make this the project that we want it to be. After the firms were selected, we started the visioning process, and that was in spring of this year. And Mr. Turks led that initiative again, and he will go through the steps that we engaged in as a group, and the group just continued to grow from that original 50, and we started to involve staff. So I will pass over the mic to Mr. Turks, and he will continue the dialogue with you.
Great, thank you. Good evening. How's everybody? It's wonderful to be here, wonderful to see you all. I'm just going to keep this very brief so we get on to the more fun stuff, which is showing you some images of what these projects will look like. But the programming process, there's several images that are up on the screen right now that really just sort of give you some live candid shots of what that looked like. There were 3 what we call workshops that happened in the springtime before school let out. Really starting, the first workshop was about big ideas, it was about vision, it was about creating some guiding principles, things that we could refer back to as the project progressed, things that could inform the planning for both Bath and Revere High School. We again started at sort of a very high level, and as we worked our way through those 3 workshops, the information became much more detailed, much more granular. We started talking about specific spaces and space needs and how many spaces and what types of spaces, how should spaces relate to each other. We looked at the sites for both Bath and the high school. How could buildings be added to both sites while still keeping each school in operation during construction. So there's a lot of levels of detail, sort of peeling that onion back layer by layer until we knew at the end of the process exactly how many spaces, how big they should be, the types of spaces, how they should relate to each other, and overall building diagrams that then launched us into the design process. So there was a lot of folks, if you were in the audience tonight and participated in one of those programming visioning workshops, can you put your hand in the air? Is anybody? Yeah, so there's actually quite a few of you that participated. So that's great. Thank you for being here this evening. Really, that was a really important work. It's a critical first step to really understanding what the needs are. Consider if you're making a nice meal for your family at home and you start with the recipe. For us, this is the recipe. It's the ingredients. What goes into the mix, so to speak. So it's a really important, critical first step. And with that, we're going to now move into taking a look at the high school. And my colleague, Amy Ekman, is going to walk us through the planning for that.
Make sure you stand by this. You bet. Did you hear that?
Were you going to say something about the high school first?
Start.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So this is where you see the fruits of that labor actually come to hardline drawings, which is pretty exciting, especially for those of you who started with bubbles on a sheet of paper. So we're going to start with the site plan of the high school. It's a little faded, so hopefully afterwards you can come take a look at the hard copy over here. But what you'll see is the existing district admin building is here. There is a red outline around the existing high school, which is about here. The 1995 addition to the high school is here. And the new building is this kind of backwards E shape, like that. It's a little tough to read, but there's some parking kind of scattered around the building in close proximity to the main football field, which remains where it's at. There is parking and bus drop-off along here, parent drop-off through here, and the main entry will be right over there. Push back basically from where it is now. Let's see what else we want to say. There will be a softball field, and an additional practice field could be located across the street on a parcel of land that is potentially being donated to the school. There's another potential piece that's going to be added to the athletics and PE area of the building. That would be a community center piece, so that's something that is to be determined. Am I missing anything? Did you want to mention that? Okay.
There is also another property that we are exploring right now. Is it this top one?
It's the bottom.
Up in this area, which is directly adjacent to 77 on Everett Road, on the same side of the street as the buildings are. And that is a 10-acre parcel that became available for sale. And it is currently under contract with the district for us to conduct environmental studies on the site to see if it would be a feasible place to put a bus garage. Right now, the bus garage is a part of the existing plan, but we were slated to put it where it's currently located, adjacent to the middle school. And if we acquired this property, it would really free up some much needed green space and also alleviate some of the major concerns that we have with fumes being in such proximity to the middle school. The price was extremely advantageous. However, I'd like to commend the board in them doing their due diligence to really explore this property to its fullest extent. So we got the results back, or received the results back from the surface water determination test last week, and that was favorable. And now we have engaged in a phase 1 wetland study to ensure that we are not, or it's a phase 1 environmental study, which includes exploration of wetlands, to determine if it's feasible through that venue. So if the results of both of those tests come back favorable, the board could look at purchasing that. If that happens, then the bus garage will be placed at that location, which could be really favorable to the overall plan. It is. It's called J-Team property now, 10 acres. It's right next to 77, but yes, it was a landscaping property. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to jump in real quick. When we're talking about possibilities, one possibility here, right here, is an indoor turf field that the boosters are looking at. And I just want to jump up now site plan wise, because basically that's where the softball field is now. That if the booster effort is productive and that indoor turf field happens, we would need to move the softball field across the street. I may come back to do some more floor plan talking.
Yeah, please.
I'll hand it back to Amy.
Okay, so I think we covered the basics on the site plan. And so what we'll do is progressively zoom in to each floor level and then take another little zoomed in snapshot so you can hopefully see a little bit of the parts and pieces that have happened here. So what you'll see is the 1995 building that we are keeping to be judicious with the economy of the footprint of the total square footage of the building. That's going to house the district admin office and the central admin for the high school, as well as the media center as it is now with some renovations, and then some classrooms as well. You'll see, again, that main entry right by that administrative suite. And to the south of that is an arts wing, so with a theater and music classrooms as well as art classrooms. And of course the support spaces that go with that. Off to the left here, you'll see the academic wings, which are actually part of what we derived in the programming process was to take what you might see as a traditional academic classroom wing with classrooms on both sides of a corridor and pull it apart so that you can actually use that corridor for something other than getting from point A to point B. You can use it for teaching and learning. So that you'll see those kind of widened corridors in those classroom areas. This building is 2 stories. Along the main spine, north-south, are kind of what you would consider more specialized classrooms, like science and some lab spaces, some special education spaces, which are also embedded within the classroom wings as well. And then coming down this main corridor, you have the cafeteria, which also serves as a large lobby space for the theater and the gym, the main gym, I should say. There's some support space that goes along with that cafeteria and gym, which are large groups of toilets and concessions and storage, and that is shared between the gym and the theater. And the beauty of its location is it's also shared with the outside spaces, so a lot of great public use facilities there. Then, of course, there's a kitchen to serve the cafeteria. And to the west of the cafeteria, you'll see this big yellow block, and that's where the PE and athletics areas are. And the green area next to that is that community piece that we talked about, which would really just add additional PE athletic space for the community and school. So the second floor is very similar. The classroom wings are identical. The main spine, again, is the shared functions and science. You'll see the media center up here where it's currently located in a slightly different configuration. This again is that main entry, so you get a nice big courtyard of the main entry. And as you come over here, you get a 2-story cafeteria, which will be nice for the large volume of kids in there to have a little bit of volume in the space. And then you get a running track around the 2 gyms that is probably 3 lanes of walking running track. There's a large fitness room and weight room, which actually is, we'll talk a little bit later about enhancements to the project that can be made larger with some booster enhancements. The wrestling room is right here at the front and center. It can also be a multi-purpose room for other athletic and PE functions. And again, that community center piece has an element upstairs as well. The gray stuff that you see in the plans are things like mechanical rooms, toilets, things that the building needs to be able to function. So we're zooming in a little bit, and I'll have a caveat with this, is that we have not yet had our detailed next step meetings with the high school folks. So while we think the pieces and parts are relatively in the places that they want to be, they may move or switch around a little bit, and we certainly know that we don't have all the places in the exact right spot yet, but generally they're in the relative location they should be. So if you're a teacher and you see an office, that's not where I want it. So don't worry, we'll talk to you, we promise. We'll get to you, we promise. So in each classroom wing, one of the things that the programming group came up with was the idea that classrooms could be really flexible and have some movable walls that could enlarge them so that teachers could teach together. They could teach larger groups of students. And many of them have a small group space in between so that students can work on more focused work together, more one-on-one or in small groups. And those rooms can open up again so that there's 3 rooms basically in a group. Those 2 walls move, and it's a large group space. So that's part of the flexibility we talked about in the workshop. There's a resource room in every classroom pod, and there's a teacher resource area so that teachers have a touchdown space with bathrooms and copying and all that good stuff. And again, the core spaces, which are making the building function, toilets, etc. The main admin here, district admin entry will be right there to the north. The main entry will be here to the south with a secure vestibule to the entry, so that after hours, that's the only spot people have to go through to get into the building. Again, specialized classrooms to the side here. This is exactly the same in all of the plans, and this is some special ed self-contained rooms that are really close to the front main entry of the building, the main theater of the building, art classrooms, choir, band, and some support for those spaces. We're going to go upstairs and look at these 2 enlarged pieces. Again, exactly the same. We've got some science over here, some typical classrooms, some business classrooms, and then the media center space is just right there. And really all this shows that's different is that there's some additional science down here, so the whole department is on the 2nd floor together, which is again something that was really important that we learned from the workshops.
So before Amy continues with the southern portion of the building, I just want to take a quick moment and talk about the fundraising campaign that is underway. The Revere All Sports Boosters Club has currently contracted with a fundraising firm out of Columbus called Gettler & Associates. And they have a goal of $8 million for a fundraising campaign that would branch out the athletic resources that we are able to afford our students and even more than that, our community. And this would be above and beyond the monies that we have allocated for the bond project. So there is a great deal of resources devoted to athletics. The boosters have come forward because they want to offer even more opportunities. So what a wonderful district to be a part of, that they are that excited that they're willing to contract with a campaign agent and then also do the legwork to try to see if this is possible. I will tell you that we've received a very favorable level of interest at this point, but what we're going to show you on the next 2 slides are variations on a theme. So there will be the bond level capacity and then ideas of a booster level support, and then even as far as a community rec center. So there's been initial conversations with the Village of Richfield as a possible partnership with this programming. We have not arrived at any conclusions at this point. Where we are in that process is the village has, I've asked them for a wish list, and they have graciously created it, and we have incorporated that in some of the images you are going to see before you tonight. And we are working with our construction managers to create a price point for that wish list that then we can continue the dialogue with the village. That may or may not come to fruition. We are not committing, I'm not making any promises other than the conversation is alive and well. The mayor is with us here tonight, and I'm sure she would be excited if you talk to her about this. How about that for putting her on the spot? She's right over here. The boosters, in terms of finances, the boosters have put forward $500,000 for this project. So they have said that they are committing to $500,000. I had another person graciously come forward to me in a matter-of-fact way that said, Matt, I'm in for another $250,000 to $500,000, depending on what you need. Another 2 donors came forward and said that they are in for $1.2 million. I say all this with a grain of salt because if you ask me to pull my pockets out right now, they are empty. But the interest is high and verbal commitments are coming in. But I want you to keep it in perspective, and I want you to know that this is a discussion that's alive and well, that has many different layers. And when you're involving multiple government agencies, it also adds a layer of complexity. And the board has the final perspective on what is going to be the best situation for our students. But when we show you these, when Amy goes through these, I want you to take note of the different layers, and also, I mean, it's a certain level of excitement that people are interested in coming forward in this way.
Okay. So I'll walk through the plans again really quickly, and Brett's going to talk a little bit about the enhancements that we've talked about here. So this is again zooming in on that athletic and PE area, as well as that community center piece. So the way it's designed is, if it happens, then it's great, and it is a natural addition to the building, and it could happen now or it could happen later. So it doesn't mean that the building itself can't happen and can't function without that piece. There's a main gym, and an auxiliary gym connected to that. And there's a couple of things in here Brett will talk about. And down here on this level are basically support lockers for PE and athletics, team rooms, coaches' spaces, officials' locker rooms, some storage. And as we talked about before a little bit, we've got this concessions area, ticket area that goes both inside and outside for indoor events and outdoor events.
Thank you, Amy. When we're talking about some of these elements, the community piece is because we're uncertain of how that's going to happen and when it's going to happen. There are some, I'm going to call them some special scenarios, because obviously this piece would be open to the public during the school day, so we're talking about a separate entrance for the community element. We're talking about separate locker rooms, and the community piece would also enhance, let's say, weight room facilities and meeting room facilities and the low impact exercise spaces. So again, this is set up if the village is in, great, that element gets added. When we talk about this center section here, there are a lot of enhancements that the boosters are looking to do to the project, to the school district's bond issue project, that are, when I say enhancements, the bond issue project has locker rooms. The boosters want to enhance those locker room facilities. They want to enhance the coach's office. They want to enhance a training room and meeting room and film room. There are some elements, though, that the boosters would bring to the project that would not be in the project if the boosters were not involved. And that's shown this one with the next plan, has that elevated walking track. There are one of the, I'm going to call them integral pieces that the boosters are talking about, is the boosters also want to enhance the weight room the same way the community piece does. So that's why these two weight rooms are right next to one another. Right now we're uncertain as to how open or closed those two spaces would be to one another, but that's the right now part of the process we're working through in the floor plans. As Steve and Amy said, trying to get the pieces of the puzzle next to one another to get the appropriate adjacencies, so that moving forward, all of the pieces of the puzzle would fit together in the end.
Really, there's not much more here. I think Brett covered the spaces up on this level. So we'll move on, I think, to the elementary school. And just so you know, this project is probably about a month or so ahead of the high school from a design development standpoint. So we have plans of the high school ready to show you tonight, but we have a little bit more development on the elementary school. Do you want to say something?
When Amy's going over these, you're going to see two different versions of the floor plans. Namely, in the academic wing, you will see a pod of 9 classrooms per level and also a pod of 10 classrooms per level. And the reason that we're looking at two different variations right now is that our enrollment study, we did 2 different enrollment studies pre-bond. Both showed for 10 years out a flat level or a slight increase in enrollment, nothing huge one way or the other. However, when we looked at the enrollment data for this fall, we saw something unusual that made us take pause. And that was, of the 100 new students we had this year, 50 of them, or 50% of them, were from non-public schools or parochial or private schools. The enrollment study did not account for existing residents who are sending their students to non-publics to re-enroll into the district. So we are trying to figure out, is that just a bubble year, or is that a trend that we have private school students who are excited about the work we're doing and those families are looking at the district in a new way? That's a good problem to have, but at the same time, the plans will be finalized for Bath for 4 weeks. So we don't have another year to explore data. So we are trying to, with the board, take all of these variables into consideration to ensure that we are building the most appropriate building possible. So in the academic wings, Amy will oscillate between a 9-room pod and a 10-room pod. And I just wanted to give a little background on why that's the case.
And I'll also add to that, that's a good thing that I forgot to mention for the high school, that the high school plans, the classroom wings are set up to be added onto in the future should they ever need that to happen. So we're trying to set that up for, we know that schools always get added onto at some point in their life, or almost always do. So try to set it up for that future flexibility as well. So for the elementary school, there is a very faint dashed red line, which again you can see over there if you want to afterwards, where the existing building is, which is right about here. So in both cases, we're really trying to steer clear of that existing building so the kids are going to school while construction is going on. The new school is located here on an angle, and that angle was derived from the natural slope of the site, which many of you might know is a pretty steep slope there. So that slope kind of does this, so that the hill goes right through here. So this piece of the building is 3 stories, which worked out really nicely, and for the programming group who wanted 3rd grade on one level, 4th grade on one level, and 5th grade on one level. And this is the academic wing here. And then the main kind of shared elements, which are 2 stories, are in the piece over on this side. So what you'll see is that I think it's almost double the parking that's there now. There's room for 11 buses to queue over here in a separate location from where parents do. The parents are going to queue in this location here. And most of the parking is located here. There's a service entry back here for food and all the other stuff that has to happen to make a school work. So you'll see some steps going down on either side of the building to get down that hill. We'll work in a ramp as well for accessibility. We've got, again, the hard surface playground area right outside the cafeteria, right outside the where the kids are going to be in this academic area here. And the fields back here remain relatively where they are today. The softball field changes in its orientation a little bit. So we'll start on what is actually the middle level of the building. So it's level 1 for this side of the building, and it's the middle level for this side of the building. And as I said, this is the academic area, and this is the shared spaces. It's really quite a simple plan. You enter in the middle of the building here. There's a nice big open stair that will show you the beautiful forest behind the building, so you can see that when you enter the building. A nice big grand lobby. And this actually got a lot of discussion, this part of the building in our workshop. So that again is set up to be very flexible with opening, movable walls, a lot of transparency, and it's set up wrapped around the student commons, which is very similar to the high school where we kind of pulled apart the corridor. But this is just a little bit bigger version of that for that project work, group work, large groups to get together, entire grades to get together in that area. And there's support spaces like lockers, toilets, small group rooms that's accessible to everybody. So really this is all of the classrooms are here, except for specialized classrooms like art and music and STEM. The main admin, again, has that secure vestibule right here. The gym is right there. The cafeteria serves as the stage to the gym, so it's actually up about 3 feet. It's going to be on the same level, and the gym will step down. Sorry, I said that opposite. The gym goes down, the stage stays on the same level. There's an elevator located here, so it hits all the levels of the building, so it's accessible on the gym floor, accessible on levels 1, 2, and 3 of the building. Music is located here, and the kitchen and back of house stuff to serve the cafeteria is right there. So this is that 10 classroom option. You can see it didn't change very much. It really just takes a tooth out on the end of the classroom wing. It's just the same 9 classrooms and then 10. So we would envision this to be rather transparent regardless of whether the classroom is built or not, so that you can have a really nice view out to the fields beyond. So level 2, this piece really stays exactly the same. There's an exception in this corner where there's some specialized things like OT, PT, and counseling and things like that change a little bit on each floor, but otherwise they're exactly the same for every grade. The STEM lab is located here. This is the main lobby with that big grand stair, media center, and art. So all that shared stuff is really easy access for everybody. Again, there's the 10 classroom option. And the lower level is built into the hill. So this is all exposed with windows. So it's just stepping down that hill, and there's just mechanical and support spaces to the back of that. 10 classrooms. And now Steve gets to talk about this exciting stuff.
Yeah, I get to talk about the pretty pictures. So this is the front view of the new Bath Elementary School. You're seeing off to the right the 3-story academic wing, almost dead center there. In the where's the Here's the main entry, right here. So sort of a colonnade with a canopy roof that sort of reaches out to bring visitors and students into the building. The main academic wing over to the right here. You can just sort of faintly see right here the stair that goes down against the slope, so the building just sort of nestles into the site. So the main door, and then off to the left here is the main administrative area, and some of those shared classroom functions that Amy mentioned. The library up above, art and music are over there. And then behind that pitched roof is where the gym is, and cafeteria, and service, and mechanical rooms, and that type of thing. So really we're looking at a building with red brick. Get behind the podium. Yeah, sure. A building that's primarily red brick. You can see a couple of tones of brick here. We're sort of grouping these windows vertically, maybe a slightly darker shade of red brick that sort of helps group those vertically to give some interest and scale to the building. The windows are white and mullioned. So the building is trying to give it, it's an elementary building, it's for little kids, a little bit more of a residential feel, even though it's quite a big building. It's over 80,000 square feet. But the architecture is trying to be very respectful of the community, and certainly lots of input from the Board of Education on the sort of the look and the feel of the building. Over to the left side, you'll notice another canopy. That's what Amy talked about, that bus drop off and that bus loop. So that's a canopy. As the students come off the bus, there's a covered spot for them, a nice spot for them to land. And then a little bit closer into the main entry then. So this is almost a straight-on view. You can see off to the right then, a little much better in this image, the stair that goes down right into that sort of the natural slope that's there. The academic area is off to the left. Some of the shared components are off to the right. So this gives you really sort of a really good sort of perspective of what the front entry will look like. See the lobby is a very sort of glassy, very bright daylit space. As you walk into that, as Amy mentioned, you'll see straight back through the building, through that stair that's behind, and out into the fields beyond. And what else should I say about that, Matt? Anything else that comes to mind for you, Amy? No? So that's Bath Elementary. Now, we're going to talk finance.
Good evening, everyone. So the obvious question becomes, how do we pay for all of this? In addition to the renovations at Hillcrest and the middle school, because those are on the horizon as well, yet to be defined the scope of work for those. The bond issue that was requested was $68.2 million, dating back before I was here, but a process occurred where the decision was made, and I believe it was the best, right decision at the point in time it was made. Do you do a visioning process for $35,000, or do you do an expanded visioning process for $125,000, and maybe have a little more thoroughly developed numbers for planning your project and the size and scope of your project? The $35,000 option was chosen. You don't know whether your bond issue will pass by your voters at that point in time, so that was the decision made. As we work through a more fully developed visioning process with staff, 151,000 square foot high school, and let me step back 1 second. The pre-bond architects, their scope of work was based upon a design manual put out by the state, a commission called the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. And they have template schools that are all across the state that identify a set square footage for classrooms and gyms and types of finishes and lighting and all kinds of materials. I spent 15 years in Lakewood and oversaw construction and renovation of 7 buildings. And I can tell you that none of those 7 buildings were designed to OFCC specifications. I have a fairly strong hunch that if that wasn't satisfactory in Lakewood, Ohio, that wasn't going to be satisfactory here either for the long term, because we're talking facilities for the next 50 to 100 years. So as we work through that process, we know that we have a high school that's more like 200,000 square feet, not counting any of the potential booster spaces. We know we have Bath Elementary, as Steve said, that exceeds 80,000 square feet. We know we still have the renovations of the other two schools. So that $68 million number isn't going to work. I know that conversation is out in our communities, but we didn't ask for enough money, and I guess as I answered your question today, arguably, you could say that's true. We didn't ask for enough money, but we asked for the right amount of money at a point in time in the past when the bond issue was sought by the voters. We now have different information that says we're going to build schools that I believe the community will be more proud of in the long term. No one made an error, no one's at fault. It was done with a specific scope and set of circumstances at a point in time in the past. So the question became, Mr. Forrest was still here, Matt and Dave and I had conversations with bond counsel, architects, CMs, like $68 million is not going to deliver what we believe these communities would want. So how are we going to fund that? And we're not going back to the voters. So we're not asking for new taxes. There are no designs to ask for new taxes related to these schools. So there's $68 million, you can read the numbers, $3 million permanent improvement funds reserved over the past few years. The district had the foresight to put away some of its current PI money that's collected. There was no need to do massive repairs in buildings that were being discussed for renovation and replacement, so those funds have been reserved. We know we have about $3 million on account for this purpose. Interest earnings on the bonds which have been sold, those are in the treasury here. We have them available to pay our expenses as we move through this project. I'm getting away from this stage. I'm going to get yelled at next, Steve. We have about $1.2 million we expect to earn in interest earnings. That may slightly uptick. And then we have the ability to borrow $7 million, which we would likely do in 10-year notes. We've explored what those interest rates are. We wouldn't issue that debt until we know how much we need to issue. It'll be a different market timing, and we'll see what that brings at the time we're there. But we have the potential to generate $79.4 million, and that would be the ceiling because we don't have any additional borrowing capacity beyond that $7 million. And I put in there no new taxes or no additional taxes because we would use some of the permanent improvement funds, the taxes that are being paid now, the millage. We would use some of that to offset the note, principal, and interest that would be required to do that. We believe 10 years would be a fair time horizon to explore for that purpose because with the new buildings and the newly renovated buildings, we should have a short time period that we won't need to be expending significant dollars on capital issues. So we believe it's well thought out. We would hope not to need to borrow the full $7 million, but we know we have the ability to do that without going back to the voters for anything additional. And I believe that we can then build the types of projects that these communities will really be delighted to claim as their own for the long term.
So just to reiterate what Mr. Burdine said, financially the district is in a very good place where we are showing that we are in the black for the life of the 5-year forecast. That's really important to us because that is what our commitment is to you as the tax base, that we stay true to previous commitments that were made by our predecessors when new money was passed in 2011, and some of you were instrumental in that campaign. So staying true to that life cycle is of the utmost importance to us. So whatever solution we came up with, it was imperative that we weren't going back to the taxpayers, and then moreover, we weren't going to be dipping into the operating expenses that would necessitate an operating levy sooner than what we said. So the message was 7 to 9 years from the passage of the 2011 new money, which was collected in 2012, which puts us in 2019 to 2021. And we are showing that we're in the black through 2021. And that is largely due to great fiscal oversight from Mr. Forrest, and then the continuation of that with Mr. Burdine moving forward. So we want you to know that fiscal conservatism is in our strategic plan. It is the lifeline of this district, and we are staying true to that mission and vision. In terms of timeline, we had a meeting this morning with the core team, which is members of the architect AE teams as well as the construction managers, and we really laid out the timeline, and it's adjusted, or it has been adjusted slightly. So the Bath building is slated to open at the beginning of the 2019-2020 school year, which is what we originally thought. The high school, however, is going to be opening the following school year of 2020-2021. There are a couple reasons for that delay, and let me tell you a couple of them. The first one is that when we spec'd out this project, we were building a 151,000 square foot building. Now we are building a 200,000 plus square foot building. We were also building a building that was all new. And as you heard tonight, the 1995 wing is going to be maintained, so we are no longer building a brand new building only. We are building a new / renovated space that has to be combined or married together. And the third thing you heard a lot about tonight was that there were variations on community involvement from boosters and beyond that make this project constantly evolving, which impacts the timetable. And as the leader of the district, in concert with the Board of Education, our commitment is building quality, not rushing the process, and ensuring that we are staying true to what message we delivered previously, and ensuring that we are fulfilling that need. So 2019-2020, Bath will be opening at the beginning of the school year. The beginning of 2020-2021, the high school will be open. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that timeline adjustment. It happened just this morning. And I am committed to transparent communication, and I want you to be kept in the loop with this project as it is evolving. That's my responsibility as the superintendent. Future forums, and we started a few minutes late, so I am right about at the 45-minute mark at this point, so I'm going to stay true to that. Future forums, we are going to have another forum in late October, early November to show you images such as these, renderings for the high school. We'll invite you in to show you those images. Then we will have forums number 3 and 4, one for Bath and one for the high school, to have ICON come in and talk specifically about the effects of construction and how these things are going to pan out, folks, because we are going to be asking an awful lot of the community in terms of patience as we are building and constructing new facilities. So in January, late January, early February, we will have a meeting at the Bath site to talk through how construction looks like at Bath, how it's impacted with traffic, with practice. And then we will do the same type of forum for the high school, and we will do that April-ish. I use that term loose, later in the spring. So we want to make sure that you are up to speed with this project, and I want you to know that this is not the last of the forums.